Imagine being a single mother in her 40s, raising two sons in New Orleans back in the 1960s, and wanting to pay for her son's college education and provide for her family, wanting more for her family than her lab technician job might provide. And with grit and determination, boldly going for her dream, mortgaging her house, and starting a business of her own. The exceptional woman bought a failing restaurant, having no restaurant experience. Rolling up her sleeves, she not only learned to cook fine meals, but how to cut sides of beef herself. She paid the bills. She did the bookkeeping. She hired and trained the staff and even cleaned the floors. From these humble yet relentless beginnings, she ultimately built what would become one of the finest and well-known steakhouses in the world. This is the story of Ruth Fertel and the early beginnings of what would become Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. This is a story of a woman's commitment to building a business of her own, literally from the bottom to the top. To my mind, Ruth Fertel is a model of a successful entrepreneur, and her story should be an inspiration to all aspiring entrepreneurs today. Ruth graduated from Louisiana State University at age 19 with honors in chemistry and physics. Her marriage ended in divorce, and Ruth was unable to support herself and her teenage sons on just her alimony payments. She initially supplemented her income by making drapes out of her home, and in 1961 she took a job as a lab technician. But Ruth wanted more. She was determined to find a way to provide a college education for her sons. And college wasn't cheap, even back then, and she wasn't about to let her sons miss out. In 1966, Ruth was flipping through the newspaper's classified ads, and she found a listing for a small steakhouse, Chris Steakhouse. Chris Steakhouse had been around since 1927. Well, most people would have turned the page, but Ruth circled that ad. And ultimately, against advice of family and friends, she mortgaged her home for $18,000 and bought that business. She then took control and rolled up her sleeves. She didn't just run the books, she cooked the steaks, she cleaned the floors, she trained the staff. She did it all. And do you ever wonder about that tongue-twisting name, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse? Why not Ruth's Steakhouse? It's an oddity with its own story. Apparently, Chris Matulik, the founder of the original Chris Steakhouse, had sold the business 6 different times over the years, and each time it was sold to a new owner. Presumably it failed, and this allowed Matulik to buy the restaurant back, often at a lower price. So history suggests that Matulik likely saw the name Chris Steakhouse as intimately tied to that specific location and likely his own ability to run it. And by requiring the name Chris Steakhouse to stay with the original physical location in each sales contract, he ensured he could buy it back and reclaim that established brand. And many people, including Ruth's lawyer and banker and friends, probably expected that would likely happen, given Ruth's lack of business and restaurant experience. But Ruth ignored their advice. She trusted her instincts and demonstrated remarkable determination. Her willingness to bet on herself and her commitment to hard work ultimately led to her restaurant's extraordinary success. With that long, tongue-twisting name change? Well, as it turned out, a 1976 fire, 10 years or so after she had bought the restaurant at its original location at 1100 North Broad Street in New Orleans, Ruth moved to a new venue at 711 North Broad Street, and she opportunistically renamed the restaurant because by then, Ruth had established her business's fine reputation and a lot of goodwill. It became the go-to place for many in New Orleans. So she apparently wanted to leverage that success rather than abandon it. She wisely added her own name, thus the long, tongue-twisting name Ruth's Chris Steakhouse was born. Interesting. Ruth Fertel was famous for hiring single mothers, much like herself. She believed these women were dependable, hardworking, and motivated to succeed to support their families. For many years, her restaurant was the only upscale dining establishment in New Orleans with an all-female staff. Years later, by the time Ruth sold the majority share of her business in 1999, she had approximately 70 locations. And Ruth remained active in the business until she passed away in 2002. Now, I've dined at Chris Steakhouse numerous times. The steaks are the best, using only prime cuts which is seemingly rare these days. Try finding prime cuts at Texas Roadhouse. It ain't going to happen. And that 1800-degree broiler, the simple seasoning, the topping of a pat of fresh butter, and served on a sizzling plate, maintains the legend established by Ruth Fertel and her dedication to serving the best steaks and building a fine business. But what makes Ruth Fertel's story matter? What makes it a perfect topic for Ed Talk Media? It's not just those tremendous steaks. It's that Ruth Fertel had the self-confidence and drive. She had the unmitigated determination and the fire in the belly. She saw a need in her life, and despite the naysayers, she took that first step and turned it into a remarkable journey. She didn't go back to school. There's no Ivy League MBA story here. And she wasn't looking for private equity money or angel investors. She studied the restaurant business herself. She rolled up her sleeves. Ruth created something lasting, brick by brick. And I dare say, delicious filet mignon by delicious filet mignon. That's the essence of a true entrepreneur. That's the inspiring story of Ruth. Ruth Fertel, the one that put Ruth in Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Too many people today feel stuck because they think they need the perfect idea or venture capital or some business degree to start something of value. Ruth didn't have any of that, but she had vision, hustle, and heart. And she built a legacy that still sizzles today. So the next time you encounter the naysayers, remember Ruth. If this story lit a fire under you, well, tap that like button and subscribe to all notifications. And how about this? Tell me in the comments, who is your favorite inspirational entrepreneur? So I'm Ed. This is Ed Talk Media, and I'll see you in the next episode.